The year is 1933. The United States is in the midst of the worst economic depression in its history. More than 1/3 of the nation is unemployed. The factories are at a standstill, and hungry people wait in lines for a bowl of soup or a piece of bread. Franklin D. Roosevelt has just been elected president, promising bold, persistent experimentation to revive the economy. If one thing doesn't work, he'll try something else. He'll do whatever it takes to help business and agriculture recover and bring relief to the unemployed. True to his word, President Roosevelt has already proposed, and Congress has overwhelmingly approved, the first of what are being called the New Deal programs. But conservatives are claiming that some New Deal legislation goes far beyond the powers granted to Congress by the Commerce Clause of the Constitution. Thus began one of the biggest constitutional controversies of the 20th century. Opponents of the New Deal challenged practically every one of its major programs in court. The Supreme Court, in turn, struck down one measure after another as unconstitutional. The court, dominated by a narrow conservative majority, reasoned that the Constitution guarantees the right of private citizens and corporations to enter into contracts as they see fit. The government should not interfere in the free market. But Roosevelt and his supporters believed that only the federal government was strong enough to rescue the nation from an economic emergency. The president argued that the Constitution should be a living force for the expression of the national will, not a dead hand blocking progress. Fresh from his landslide re-election in 1936, and with large Democratic majorities in Congress to back him, a frustrated Roosevelt proposed a controversial solution to get his New Deal legislation past the Supreme Court. The president knew that his New Deal programs had to pass the test of constitutionality. The traditional solution would have been to amend the Constitution, but the amendment process can take a long time, and Roosevelt wanted a quicker way to resolve the issue. He knew that the Constitution does not specify the number of Supreme Court justices, and he was aware that the number of justices had changed several times in the past. So Roosevelt introduced a plan he called court reform. This plan would allow him to appoint up to 6 new Supreme Court justices. Roosevelt's critics, including some who supported the New Deal, called this proposal court packing. They saw it as a scheme that would let the president fill the court with justices who would support his New Deal programs, and thus violate the constitutional separation of powers.
This is a nonpartisan battle to preserve an independent Supreme Court. I am opposed to packing the court for the purpose of controlling its constitutional decisions.
The president defended his plan during one of his famous fireside chats.
If by that phrase, packing the court, it is charged that I wish to place on the bench spineless puppets who would disregard the law and would decide specific cases as I wished them to be decided, I make this answer, that no president fit for his office would appoint, and no Senate of honorable men fit for their office would confirm that kind of appointees to the Supreme Court of the United States.
However, President Roosevelt made a political blunder. He claimed that the new justices were needed to help the older justices who had become overburdened by the caseload. Even his supporters suspected this was not the president's true motive, and many feared the plan could permanently tip the balance of power in government. But most supporters, fearful of an unchecked Supreme Court, saw no alternative and steadfastly defended their president.
Senator La Follette supports the president.
Those who are opposing the president's proposal rise to sanctimonious heights and point shame upon any attack upon the Supreme Court. The men who wrote the Constitution never intended the Supreme Court to rule this nation. When the court substitutes its own will for the will of the people, then this country is not governed by a democracy, but instead ruled by the blind prejudices of a judicial oligarchy.
Heated public debates over the constitutional issues raised by Roosevelt's plan dominated the newspapers and airwaves. All across the country, citizens assembled to discuss the issues and to communicate with their representatives in Congress. Never before or since has public participation in a constitutional debate been so great. Although the need for the court-packing plan faded as the Supreme Court began to approve New Deal legislation, the damage had been done. The plan caused bitter controversy in the country and is often referred to as the constitutional crisis of 1937.